What a wild weekend if you're a Nationals fan. CJ Abrams got optioned to AAA for staying out all night until 8 a.m. before a 1 p.m. game. What he was doing? He was gambling. And guys, the Nats, they made the right decision.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals, and wherever you get your podcasts. Again, search Locked On Nationals, hit that subscriber button, drop a thumbs up, drop a comment, whatever you want. You can find Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts. While you're at it, make sure to search up Locked On Nationals over on Twitter, and as well as my own Twitter page at Ryan Clary 11. That is where you'll find your latest Nationals news and notes, and there are also other things out there. But today's episode is about CJ Abrams. There really is nothing else to talk about from this weekend from the Chicago Cubs series, because CJ Abrams became a national headline, and I'm going to assume some people are already aware of it. But the third segment of today's show, who is going to step up in this final week to help replace CJ Abrams? I'll discuss that in the third segment of today's show. In the second segment, we have a Nats stock report for you, your latest individual performances on the Washington Nationals, whose stock is up and whose stock is down. But we start off with just a basic old discussion about CJ Abrams and the weekend that he had. And let me tell you this, the Nationals, they absolutely made the right decision to option CJ Abrams. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. So, speaking of Booking.com, I think CJ Abrams booked himself a nice little night at the casino down in Chicago. So let's get into it. Over the weekend, CJ Abrams, there was a report from a Cubs reporter that CJ Abrams spent the entire night and was there up until 8 a.m. at a casino before a 1 p.m. game in Chicago. And I saw that at first before it went viral. I was kind of like, I don't know if this guy's real or not. And then shortly thereafter, the news got leaked that the Nationals were going to be optioning CJ Abrams to AAA, and I think we all know why. It was because of the casino. And I do think that the timing of this really plays into why he was optioned. Because let's just get this out of the way. Being a baseball player on the road, these stories, they're not very common, but they're also not uncommon. You hear about these all the time. You hear about guys who do go out and party, and they can do that and stay up till 4 a.m., and then play the next day at a 1 p.m. game. Guys do that. It is a real thing in Major League Baseball, and some guys are just built different to where they can just do that, and it's no problem for them. But in this scenario, CJ Abrams is in a slump. He just is. Since really the second half of the season started, over his last 49 games, he has a 586 OPS and a 203 batting average compared to the first half where he was a legitimate all-star. So I think the timing of CJ Abrams going out to the casino, doing his thing until 8 a.m., and then, of course, the Nationals literally played at 1 p.m. that day, and I would have to assume that he probably had zero sleep that night. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just going to assume that he was there all night long. I think that's a fair thing to think. But the bottom line of this story is some people are debating, did they do the right thing? Did the Nationals make the right decision to option him to AAA with only a week left? And by the way, the AAA season is over. So he's going to West Palm Beach to work in the side field, basically. Yes, they did. They absolutely made the right decision. If you look around this team right now, you have James Wood, a stud. You never have to worry about this guy ever. You look at Dylan Cruz, hopefully the face of the franchise someday, the national headline name that you'll see on ESPN. They'll be following him forever. Same with James Wood. And CJ Abrams is also in that fold as well. CJ is the veteran at this point. He is in his third season up in the bigs. And yes, he's still only 23 years old. Gambling the day before a game, or really the morning before a game, all the way up until 8 a.m. is wrong. It just is. It doesn't set a good precedent for other guys in that clubhouse, and especially when you're in a slump. If this was the first half of the season and CJ Abrams was putting up his all-star numbers, I think the Nationals probably would have had a talk with him and said, don't do this. This is a terrible look. You have got a great future ahead. Stay on this fine track and you'll be an all-star, which he was. But in the second half, again, a 586 OPS. He's got more stolen bases than what he had in the first half of the season. Way less games, by the way. But also, the production just simply is not there. And I do think, from hearing through the grapevines and whatever else, I actually had a friend that texted me. And I will say, this friend is a big casino goer, to say the least. Quote, this is what he texted me. I see CJ Abrams all the time at the casino. If you're always at MGM, you may see CJ Abrams there. And I'm not saying that's true or false. I'm just saying what a friend texted me. I don't know what all the time means. I don't know if that's just a handful of times, or I don't know if that's every day, or I don't know if that's every other day. I don't know what the timeline is. But I'm just telling you what a friend texted me. I see him all the time. CJ Abrams, though, you should not be concerned whatsoever in this scenario with your future shortstop. You should not be. CJ Abrams is still your franchise shortstop. He is still going to be the guy on the front logo of this team. National headlines will be about CJ Abrams. This guy will be an all-star, and I think he will learn from this. This is not concerning whatsoever. In fact, I think this could light a little bit of a fire under his butt to get his act together a little bit. He's 23 years old. If you were 23 years old with millions of dollars in your account, you'd probably make some not so bright decisions. I certainly would. Think back to last season. Luis Garcia Jr., Mike Rizzo went on with the Sports Junkies after they just optioned him in a very surprising way. And he kind of went on and called him out publicly and said he's got to work in his preparation. He has to learn to be a big leaguer every single day. And what did Luis Garcia Jr. do this year? Well, he broke out in a big way. He has been one of the better offensive second basemen in all of baseball behind Ketel Marte in Arizona. But if you look at his numbers compared to Jose Altuve and others like that, he stacks up right there against them. I think CJ Abrams, not only does he have way more talent than Luis Garcia Jr., but he is an overall just better baseball player. He will learn from this. And again, CJ Abrams is a leader in this clubhouse. I've seen it. He takes guys under his wing. James Wood, I'm sure he's done the same with Dylan Cruz. Darren Baker, someone who has come up here recently who has played well. I guarantee you CJ has been in his ear as well. I'm not worried whatsoever when it comes to CJ Abrams and his quote-unquote maturity or whatever you want to call it. He's 23 years old. He's turning 24 in a few weeks. Let the kid be a kid. He's going to make mistakes. And he did make a mistake. I guarantee you the first person to acknowledge that CJ made a mistake is probably CJ Abrams. It's okay. You're going to be fine. Everyone will be okay. This is going to be a learning experiment for CJ. And if you kind of go into it, I think going into next season, number one, we'll probably forget about it. It'll be kind of a joke because the Nationals, they'll be just fine. Everyone will be okay. CJ will be okay. So that is it. What do you think? Tweet at me at RyanClary11. Comment in the YouTube section at Locked On Nationals. Hit that subscriber button while you're at it, because in my opinion, the Nationals, they made the right gamble to send CJ Abrams down to AAA. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I will say there's a ton of funny memes out there with, if you're a young person like myself, you're seeing people saying CJ is just like us. I mean, it was a pretty funny national headline to go out there, I will admit. I mean, just an incredible out there until 8 a.m. before a 1 p.m. game. Savage, to say the least. But he'll learn from this. It'll all be fine. It'll be water under the bridge as we enter 2025. CJ Abrams will have a big year next year. I do believe in that. Now let's get into a Nat stock report. Who has been up and who has been down? Before we get into that, though, I'm going to tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at Booking.com. And of course, guys, you know about Booking.com because this episode of Locked On Nationals is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, and explore those U.S. cities that you always secretly wanted to learn more about, with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city during the postseason. Maybe it's time to taste your baseball competition stadium cuisine. Luckily on Booking.com, you can find a stadium stay that's just right for you. On Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the U.S., you can go incognito to all your baseball rival cities. Maybe you want to go up to Baltimore, see some postseason baseball with the Birds. Well, a Baltimore Orioles fan heading to maybe the New York Yankees to catch a baseball game, they want their team to win, but is also excited to check out some new New York pizza or whatever it is. They end up falling in love with that baseball rival city thanks to their stay with Booking.com. Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you, and Booking.com can help you book a stay that's close to your home, teams, or rival stadium. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, Now let's tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, you know FanDuel already. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Like tonight, you have the Commanders game on. I've got a Jaden Daniels same game parlay. I think he scores a touchdown. I also think Brian Robinson scores a touchdown as well. You can do that and make the game so much more fun with our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, that is FanDuel.com. Again, download America's #1 sportsbook. Just visit FanDuel.com and download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So let's get into it. The Washington Nationals, they are entering their final week here. The second to last stock report for your Nats. So let's get into it. Stock up, MacKenzie Gore. We talked about this a few weeks ago. One of the goals entering September was to get MacKenzie Gore back on track. Well, over his last 6 starts, dating back to August 23rd, MacKenzie Gore has gotten back on track, especially over this last weekend where he pitched a very good game, carried a no-hitter later on into the game against the Chicago Cubs, who were competing for a postseason spot, and now they are not, thanks to the Washington Nationals. But stock up from MacKenzie Gore over his last 6 starts, 34 2/3 innings pitched, only 23 hits allowed, only 7 earned runs, 10 walks, 36 strikeouts, a 1.82 ERA, and batters have a 186 batting average against with a 592 OPS. MacKenzie Gore, this is what you wanted to see. And of course, I think MacKenzie Gore, this is really what we expected to see all season long. Not a 1.82 ERA, that's Cy Young numbers there. But I still do think MacKenzie Gore has by far and away the highest ceiling as far as starting Nationals pitchers go. I think he's going to be just fine. I think he will be very good. And of course, you did see him. He took that game with a little bit of a emotional side to him. As you saw, CJ Abrams and him are very tight coming over from San Diego. And Gore had some comments about that as he was upset, disappointed, all the things around CJ. So MacKenzie Gore, he enters just one more start to finish this season. I think I think MacKenzie Gore will finish on the right track, and we'll see what happens. But he gets a stock up on the stock report, which means there's a stock down coming, and that is for Dylan Crews. Dylan Crews, at one point in yesterday's game, before his final at-bat, was 0 for his last 19. And then he got a hit, nice little infield, or he roped one up the middle, and Dylan Crews is now 1 for his last 20. But even furthermore than that, he has 4 hits in his last 28 at-bats, only 10 hits in his last 58 at-bats, only 10 hits in his last 15 games, and really his overall numbers do not look too great right now up in the bigs. But I think Dylan Crews, and this is what Mark Zuckerman pointed out, I believe he's only seen like 4 fastballs over his last like 15 or something crazy like that. They know he can hit the fastball. They're not going to throw it to him. He's going to have to adjust and learn how to hit breaking balls, because this is what a major leaguer does. And this is what the difference is between an all-star major leaguer and just a really solid player. I think Dylan Crews will be an all-star, but he's going to have to learn how to hit pitches outside of fastballs at this point, because he certainly can't do that up to this point. But we'll see what the Nationals do decide to do with the kid moving forward. So stock down for Dylan Crews. Stock up for one of the more impressive bullpen pieces, in my opinion, for the Nationals, Jose Ferrer. Over his last 10 appearances, check this out. 12 innings pitched, 11 hits, 2 earned runs, only 1 walk, 9 Ks, a 1.5 ERA, a 1.92 fielding independent pitching on the season, and a 500 OPS against. Even furthermore than that, dating back to August 10th, so well over a month now, Jose Ferrer, his last 20 appearances, 21 innings pitched, 18 hits given up, a 0.86 ERA, a 1.93 FIP, 16 strikeouts, only 2 walks in those 21 innings pitched. Jose Ferrer, at a young age, this is your bullpen guy to really look forward to. This is going to be the guy who will replace your Hunter Harvey. He's not going to blow you away with his stuff, but he gets the job done. And this now dates back even to last season, when a year ago in September, he was killing it. He was doing very well. Started the season on the IL, missed a bulk of the season, and ever since coming off it, he has been everything that I have expected Jose Ferrer to be. So I think this is someone who is a real part of this future, a real part of this bullpen. And of course, I think he's going to be a name that we'll be talking about hopefully for the next few years to come, because he's going to be a legit arm for this Nationals bullpen. And being a lefty coming out of the bullpen, that is a huge deal for this Washington Nationals team. Stock down for Andres Chaparro. I remember we were talking about Andres Chaparro being a DH of the future. This guy's great. Now we're kind of come crashing down to earth a little bit. Andres Chaparro, over his last 7 games, he's only got 3 hits. He's only got 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, batting .120, a 200 slug, and Andres Chaparro, the magic around him seems to have simmered down just a little bit. Andres Chaparro is still, I think, a huge bat that could be in the middle of your order and play a huge role for this team. But overall, Chaparro at this point in time is looking like someone who isn't really cut out to be an everyday major leaguer. And I think that was the overall concern with Chaparro. And by the way, you traded Dylan Floro for him. Dylan Floro, the value that he showed the Nationals in the first half of the season was pretty high, but you weren't really expecting too much in return. Andres Chaparro came up. He showed that he has lethal power. He still has that ability. And if the Nationals can find something for him down the line and he does excel in that role, whatever role that it is, it will be a great trade to look back on and say Mike Rizzo hit a big home run. But Andres Chaparro, speaking of home runs, needs to start hitting home runs because over his last 15 games, he only's got 2 of those. And if you're a power bat getting consistent at bats, I'm going to need to see a little bit more power from you. So stock down for Andres Chaparro. Stock up. Former manager in town, World Series champion, Dusty Baker, his son, Darren Baker, gets a stock up. He had a 3-hit night on Thursday in Chicago. And of course, over his first 7 games up in the bigs, he's got 2 doubles. He's got only 3 strikeouts through his first 13 at-bats. Not all too great, but he's looked really good. He has looked the part of a utility big leaguer, in my opinion, batting .462, a .615 slug, a .1077 OPS. Obviously, these numbers won't really look the part, but we'll see what happens overall with Darren Baker, but he has looked really good. He has been waiting for this debut for a couple years now, and there were at times this season where Darren Baker probably felt like he was jumped by other prospects. Jose Tena came into the fold and played nice. Luis Garcia Jr. has had a really good bounce back season this year, so it has not really opened up the door for a Darren Baker to make his major league debut. But ultimately, Darren Baker in his first few games as a Washington National has looked really good. So next segment, who will step up for CJ Abrams? There's a couple names out there, but I also wanted to talk about the wild card races here as we enter the final week of the Major League season. And there are a couple very good races here, including right here in the NL East, the Mets and the Braves, who will get that final last wild card spot. We'll tell you about that after we tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks. And of course, I've talked about Prize Picks plenty of time with you guys, and I want you to know Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and of course, my home state, Virginia. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy that your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks, your picks are still live. And of course, download Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So Prize Picks, run your game. Now we get into it with who will step up with CJ Abrams out for the rest of the season, or at least I'm assuming for this final week of the season, for a little bit of a disciplinary action as he took a gamble in the Nationals, then took the turn on him. So who will step up? Well, over the weekend, we did see a very nice double play. In fact, in yesterday's game against the Chicago Cubs between Nasim Nunez and Jose Tena. And one thing that you're going to notice right away is Nasim Nunez is a much more polished defender than CJ Abrams. The arm is real. You have seen it time and time again. He makes very nice plays. He is a smooth operator out there at shortstop. I think Nasim Nunez will be the guy over the next week to kind of step up a little bit. And even furthermore than that, I think Nasim Nunez kind of came into play with CJ Abrams getting optioned. Nasim Nunez all season long has not had any opportunities to play. It has really been a waste of a development year for him. I think him being so young, doing all the right things as a rookie, kind of played into why the Nationals sent down CJ Abrams. The reason why I say that is because Davey Martinez, he has like a human element to him. This is something that I think has always been a very good, positive thing about Davey. He sees Nasim Nunez go out there every single day, make all the right decisions, do all the right things, yet he doesn't get his opportunity, knowing that he has CJ Abrams, who is a much better, more polished player ahead of him. Well, with CJ Abrams making that mistake and Nunez doing all those right things, I think this was kind of an opportunity given to Nasim Nunez to be the starting shortstop for the final week of the season to see what this kid can do with consistent at-bats. Now, I'm not saying that played into it, but I do think it kind of did, in a sense. Wrong or right, I think you're going to see a lot more Nasim Nunez over the last week here. Trey Lipscomb as well, who was recalled, who I think we kind of know what he is at this point. But Nasim Nunez, this is the opportunity that the kid has been waiting for. If he can put together a nice little week for this Nationals team, he was your Rule 5 pick going into last season. And I think Nasim Nunez will be a decent guy for this Nationals operation here. Again, I don't think Nunez is some incredible player. I don't think he's going to be some massive help off the bench for this team down the line, but he surely will defensively. And if this kid can put up some solid numbers offensively, I think he could be in the majors next year as kind of like your utility guy. And that is a very good situation to have. Someone who's very good defensively and as well paired with Jose Tena, who we don't really know what his future will be at this point in time, but you saw the nice double play between them yesterday, and the chemistry is there between them. So I think Jose Tena and Nasim Nunez in particular, they'll be the ones to step up in CJ Abrams' absence. But we enter the final stretch here. I do want to talk about this, the wild card race. The Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets, they are separated by 2 games. The Mets hold that last wild card spot and the third spot there, and the Atlanta Braves are 2 games back. Well, wouldn't it be nice if the Mets and the Braves could play each other? Well, they do, starting tomorrow night. The New York Mets, again, they hold that 2-game lead. They have a series opening up in Atlanta, and all eyes in baseball will be on that series. It is going to be an incredible one to watch. This is what Major League Baseball really needs at this point in time. And also, the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves could also catch the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you could see both those teams ending up in the NL wildcard race. So the NL East will have 3 overall teams in the race to try to compete for a postseason spot. The NL East continues to be one of the better divisions in all of baseball over the last few seasons. And again, the Diamondbacks, as they have kind of been struggling here as of late, they've only won 5 of their last 10. The San Diego Padres, they're in a very good position. They're going to wrap up a wild card spot probably within the next day or two as they play the LA Dodgers as well. And by the way, they could also catch the LA Dodgers in a scenario here. They're only 3 games back. They start a series in LA tomorrow night. So things are going to get freaky here in the National League, but also in the American League, things to watch out for. You've got the Kansas City Royals, Detroit Tigers, and the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles will be locking up a wild card spot. The Tigers have played themselves into a very good situation here as they now hold the 2nd wild card spot, and they're also tied for the Kansas City Royals with that 3rd spot as well. But the Tigers do own that tiebreaker at this point in time. And of course, the Minnesota Twins are only a game back. The Seattle Mariners are only 2 games back. The Red Sox and the Rays are 4 games back. The Rays have kind of made a late season push here. They've won 7 of their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak. I don't expect the Rays or the Red Sox to make it. The Mariners, they're certainly in the fold here, but I don't expect them to make it either. They start a series tonight against their rival Houston Astros. So we'll see what happens, but this is the best time of year for baseball outside of October. And again, we'll see what happens with these wildcard races, but it will get interesting. But keep your eye on the NL East between the Braves and the Mets. They will be battling it out, and it's going to be a fun watch over these next few days. So thank you all for being a Locked On Nets, your first listen every single day. CJ, if you're out there, we learned. It's fine. Enjoy tonight's little off time for Nationals baseball. We will catch you tomorrow and preview the series ahead. Have a good one. Go Nats.